North Carolina time has expired. I now yield to the gentlewoman from California, Congresswoman Watson.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say to you on your birthday that yesterday is the past, tomorrow is the future, but today is a gift from God. That's why it's called the present. Happy birthday, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your kind words.
I want to get back to the Bank of America, and thank you so much, Mr. Boyarsky, for being here and being so open with us. According to recent reports, Bank of America is now trying to avoid paying billions of dollars in fees to the U.S. taxpayers in return for the $118 billion in guarantees they received from the federal government. According to the B of A, the agreement was never signed, but the guarantees have been announced as part of the assistance they received to complete the acquisition of Merrill Lynch. Do you believe that the Bank of America benefited from increased investor confidence because of the perception that they had federal ring fencing of their toxic assets?
I really am reluctant to comment on, as Inspector General, on an ongoing negotiation between Treasury and Bank of America. I think that the events are what they are on that, but I think it may be crossing a line as an agency if we start publicly commenting on something that's an ongoing negotiation. So respectfully, I would ask for your permission not to have to answer that question.
We had the former Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Polson, in here for 5 hours last week. It was like trying to unscramble rotten eggs, and it's very frustrating to us. Has the Treasury Department provided an explanation for why they did not require Bank of America to join the Asset Guaranteed Program Agreement? Do you know?
We haven't gotten that explanation. We've been monitoring the program since it was its announcement, and we've got a little bit of information, basically, that there's been ongoing discussions. We have an audit coming out, I think, that tracks a lot of the fine work of this committee on the Bank of America and its participation in the various TARP programs, which we'll be presenting in September. And I would be happy at that time to come back to the committee and discuss its findings if the committee would think that would be helpful.
Yes, I would ask the chair to hold up a follow-up meeting in due time so that we can follow up on some of this, because you lead right into my next question I wanted to ask. And have you discovered any other large-scale agreements of the federal government which the federal government has entered into with financial institutes without valid contracts to enforce the proper repayment of the taxpayers' investments? So this is a question that you can keep in mind for our follow-up meeting. I do hope we can set that sometime in the very near future. Also, let me see, in your April quarterly report, you notice the risk of conflicts of interest and collusion vulnerabilities inherent in the design of the Public-Private Investment Program, a PPIP. However, the Treasury Department has declined to adopt your recommendation to impose an informational barrier between the employees who do or do not handle PPIP funds at the time these funds, the PPIP fund managers, at the 9 PPIP fund managers. Can you comment on that, or should we wait for a subsequent meeting?
No, absolutely. We think that this is a fundamental deficiency in the current structure of the PPIP program. We think that it is absolutely essential that there be an informational barrier or ethical wall that prevents the fund manager's firm from taking advantage of confidential market-moving information that the fund managers are going to have. We think it's a problem, and we think it's a deficiency in the program.
Thank you. And why do you believe the Treasury Department is unwilling to impose the measure despite having placed similar restrictions on asset managers in comparable federal bailout-related programs?
Treasury has provided to us, and we've included in our report, a very detailed written description of their justifications and reasoning. In our report, we address each of those and show why we disagree with them. One of them, that it's impractical, that the design of the program doesn't make it susceptible to such walls, and it may very well be that the program is fundamentally flawed in its design, in such a way that in its current structure it may be impractical. Our response is that because this is such an important issue for such a variety of reasons, that if it's impractical with the current 9 fund managers, well then before selecting these 9 fund managers, Treasury should have changed its criteria or did what was necessary to put in the necessary walls to protect the taxpayer.
My time is up, and Mr. Chairman, I would hope that in our subsequent hearing with Mr. Bryarsky that we can get these recommendations and get some ideas about how you would assess the standard functions of such a department. So thank you. And are we going to recess?
No, we're going to continue all the way through. Just to give you an update, the House is in recess, which makes it good for us.
Oh, great.
We can continue.
Okay.
We're not in recess. When the House is in recess, that's when we really do our work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I now yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Bilbray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to join the committee in congratulating you on your birthday, and all of us were witnesses to how quickly you blew out that candle, so maybe we can negotiate with Mr. Waxman for a carbon credit for you on that item, okay? First of all, I watched this morning, Mr. Borowski, the way you were attacked for releasing this committee. And I'd just like to say to you as one member of this committee, thank you for giving us the hard, cold facts. And I just hope that you remember that when you get attacked like that, when basically because you brought a message a lot of people didn't want to hear in this town, contrary to public belief, the ancient Egyptian tradition was to always send your best people to give bad news. Because the guys who were sent with the good news were sacrificed to thank the gods for the good news. So it should be a credit to you to understand that you're attacked because you are bringing this up. And I want to thank you very much for that. And I'm sure this, not just this committee, but the public at large is going to thank you for your report. The hard, cold facts do get into trouble. Speaking of footprints, the whole concept of looking at BlackRock and some of these the 9 players here, where the footprint of the federal government of picking winners in this whole game. Do you have any idea, or and if you don't and you need to have time, I understand, because you can get back to us in writing, how did these 9 major players get chosen as the winners in this game to be blessed not just by the bureaucracy of the federal government, but by all the taxpayers in the federal government? How did these 9 players become the winners in this game as opposed to the other losers that were pointed out by the former mayor of Cleveland, Mr. Kucinich?
The Treasury's explanation is that they put out applications. They received about 140 applications. The next step was to remove duplicative applications or incomplete, and that came down to 102. They then applied the criteria, which they've put out on their website, of what they were looking for in the ideal asset managers. And basically, those that didn't meet that cut, I think they narrowed the number down to 13. They then did a series of interviews, and it ended up with the final 9. I think those are the numbers. I think the exact numbers are likely reflected in our report. And that is essentially how Treasury has described their process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just think this report really, again, reinforces the fact that we have ventured into a very, very scary territory, a brave new world where Washington decides what happens on Wall Street and Main Street. And hopefully we can somewhere in the future find a way to have an exit strategy and remove ourselves from imposing our footprint over the rest of American society. And I thank you very much for this report, because I think it's a dose of reality to make all of us work together here. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I now yield 5 minutes to the